Hello, this is the Liberty Sphere Report. I'm Anthony G. Martin. I would like to talk to you today for a few moments about U.S. policy toward terrorism. This, of course, has been in the news of late in the wake of the attack in New York City at Times Square. And yes, it was an attack. It was not a thwarted attack because law enforcement had absolutely nothing to do with stopping the bomb from detonating. Neither did federal law enforcement officials have anything whatsoever to do with preventing carnage in New York City. The only thing that prevented that bomb from going off is that it had a defective detonator. So this qualifies as an attack, a failed attack nonetheless, but still an attack. 3 times since Barack Obama has taken office, we have been attacked by Islamic jihadists. Yet it has taken this long, almost a year and a half, for the Obama administration to even admit that there is such a thing as extremist Islamic terrorism. Even the Pentagon's official final report on the Fort Hood massacre, during which an Islamic terrorist killed many of our servicemen and women, failed to mention that this man was well connected to the vast underground of jihadist terrorism. He was a Muslim. He is a Muslim. And this particular faction of the Muslim faith teaches that America, of course, is the great Satan. We are infidels, and therefore we must convert or be killed. This is a fact, and yet no one in the Obama administration seems to have the stomach to admit such a thing, to even acknowledge that such a thing exists, and even the Pentagon is now guilty of perpetrating this politically correct BS, which suggests that Islamic extremists have absolutely nothing to do with these terrorist attacks on our country. This is absolutely unconscionable and entirely unacceptable. And herein lies the problem. We have been attacked 3 times in the last year and a half. There was the failed attempt of the Christmas Day bomber, the Islamic jihadist who put explosives down in his underwear on an airplane and intended to detonate the bombs over the city of Detroit. There again, law enforcement had absolutely nothing to do with preventing the attack. Federal law enforcement agencies had absolutely nothing to do with preventing it. The only thing that saved the city of Detroit from massive carnage was the fact that the detonator was defective, just as was the bomb in the car that they discovered in Times Square in New York City. This had nothing to do with feds. This had nothing to do with law enforcement. It had to do with the failure of the terrorists to properly detonate their bombs. Therefore, these were attacks. The only thing that prevented death and carnage was the fact that the materials that the terrorists used were defective. And then, of course, we have the infamous report from the Pentagon on the Fort Hood jihadist. And in that final report, the Pentagon failed glaringly to refer to that attack as arising from Islamic extremists. They just absolutely refused to acknowledge it. The Obama administration has refused to acknowledge it. To this very day, they still refuse to acknowledge it. The only thing, in fact, that the Obama administration has changed in the wake of the Times Square bomber is the fact that they're now using the word terrorism, whereas before they even shied away from using that term. But even now, although they're using the term terrorism, they very deftly remove the word Islamic or Muslim or jihadist from the term. These terrorists must be identified for who they are, and here is why. This administration has had a penchant for referring to terrorism only in terms of those that it considers to be a threat to its political power. For example, the Tea Party activists have been referred to as potential right-wing extremists, potential homegrown terrorists, people who join militias, many of whom are most patriotic and who would not think of breaking the law, and who have never threatened anyone's life and would never think of doing such a thing. These people have been smeared by the Obama administration, the mainstream media, and those on the left as potential homegrown terrorists. The same can be said for Janet Napolitano, the Secretary of the Department of Homeland Security. You see, my friends, while the Obama administration has its eyes fixed on all of the wrong things, the patriots, the Tea Party activists, the militias, where there's very little crime, very little covert activity, absolutely no threat whatsoever to anyone's life, while they're focused on that, the Islamic jihadists are doing their work unnoticed. So, while the Obama administration fiddles with its thumbs in Washington, the jihadists are going about secretly, quietly, underground, laying the groundwork for their attacks. And sooner or later, they are going to be successful. Some have even suggested that the Times Square bomber did not really intend to set off a bomb, that this was a dry run to test U.S. resolve, to test our ability to thwart such attempts. And my friends, we have failed miserably. We have absolutely failed under this administration and under Janet Napolitano's Department of Homeland Security to keep this nation safe from the real threats coming from the actual terrorists within the extremist Islamic community. Now you, I think, are intelligent enough to see clearly what's wrong with this picture. The Obama administration has its priorities in the wrong place. Their terminology, refusing to even acknowledge that Islamic terrorism exists and that it is dangerous, is one of the things that is contributing toward the danger that this nation faces currently with regard to these attacks.